Good evening, and welcome to the final performance of this season's Ad Astra Music Festival. I'm Alex Underwood, one of the artistic directors of the festival, and I can't wait to share tonight's performance with you. The festival is undertaking its largest project to date, and it's the commissioning of a brand new opera that will premiere next season at Prairie Esta. For those of you who don't know, Prairie Esta is a celebration in Russell, Kansas, my hometown and the place where the festival is based, that happens every 10 years. And it celebrates the history of Russell and the culture of Russell, and basically celebrates the founding, which will be celebrating its 150th year next season. And at every Prairie Esta so far, there has been a historical pageant. That's right, a pageant. Something that happens outdoors that shows these huge tableaus of these different historical scenes with thousands of people. I like to envision the Beijing Olympics, opening ceremonies. But as you can imagine, that sort of historical telling of things has somewhat gone out of fashion. And I directed the pageant 10 years ago. And as I was thinking about this upcoming Prairie Esta and telling the history of Russell, I thought that I would shift the method in which that history was told. And so what we're doing this year is the festival, which will not have a normal season next year, but instead integrate itself into the Prairie Esta celebration. We will tell the story in three different ways. One is in a series of short films, one is in a series of monologues, and the other is an opera. And each of the films, monologues, and the opera tells the history of Russell by telling individual stories of different people from all walks of life in Russell's history. And the opera is about someone who was very influential in Russell in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Her name was Trudy Furney. Trudy was an art teacher at Russell High School, and she impacted tons of students to go on to be professional artists or really serious hobbyists, or just enjoy the arts in general. She impacted our community by being a founding member of the Russell Arts Council, by starting the Roar Art Show, an annual art competition in our town. And she was just a major force for the arts in Russell. And but her life, like all of our lives, was really complicated. She had some tragedies along the way, and the end of her story is something that's one of the most complicated ones that I know, and a really well-known one in Russell as well. And so when I think about the life of Trudy, I think that she has two elements, heroic and tragic. And if I know anything about opera, it's that this is the perfect way to tell that kind of story, that is the essence of the archetype of opera, to tell both heroic and tragic stories. So that's what started this whole idea about Trudy as an opera. So I reached out to Anna Pigorna, a composer who just finished her PhD at Princeton and has had a really strong career already. And she led me to a librettist, Maria Reva, who happens to be her sister, who's also a fantastic short story writer in her own right. And the two of them worked together on this opera project. They came to Russell 2 summers ago to interview tons of people about Trudy's life. Last summer, if you came to the festival, you might have heard a whole concert of Anna's music. And this summer, we got to workshop the first few scenes of the opera. We did the workshop in person. We took tons and tons of COVID-19 precautions. You'll hear more about that later. But we put that together and filmed the 4-day workshop. And what you'll see tonight is the fruit of that workshop. And it's still in rough form. It's still in a very nebulous, Anna and Maria are just trying out ideas to kind of get a sense of things. And this helps them watch it back and make some adjustments and tinker with it as we move forward. Hopefully we'll do a full workshop of the opera in the spring. And then June 10th, 11th, and 12th, we will premiere the opera at Prairie Esta in Russell. And I cannot wait for that. We'll be doing it in the park where Trudy's angel statue that she designed still stands to this day. And I can't wait to get to see what that's like and to get to share that with the people who are in town for Prairie Esta and for people who already live there and are enjoying the festivities. Like I said, this was our major project for this year, and we're still have a ways to go, both in terms of logistics and creation and funding. And so, if you, as you're thinking about your charitable giving for the next several months, I hope that you consider us as an option. Because we still need some funding in order to make this a reality. We're well on our way, but every little bit helps, and we definitely need some of that. So thank you for considering that, and I hope you really enjoyed tonight. I know many of you have been looking forward to this, as have I, and I'm just really excited about where we are already. So enjoy tonight's concert, and I hope to see you very soon.
I see Trudy as this incredible creative mind and a really warm soul. From what I've learned about her, I think of her as being inspirational, accepting, loving, and compassionate, and one of those kind of brilliant creative genius minds that puts no restrictions on what's possible.
I mean, she left such a huge legacy in the community, and not just with her students, but with her colleagues as well and her friends. So if we can portray just the inkling of the person she was, and her big laugh.
I think we all have somebody like this in our lives or in our community, and we might not realize it. And that even though we live in rural Kansas, that there are really interesting stories to be heard and told, and really interesting people that live among us, and that they have every right to have their story told as anybody else. And I think we have, the ability to share those interesting lives with others, I think, is crucial in our community. To show how much passion and creativity there is in even a small community like Russell, or a small community in any town in Kansas. There are those people that have just fascinating lives, and that could teach us a lot of things if we stopped and were willing to listen.
I think people should know that while this story feels local to Russell, every person I come across in my musical circle whom I tell this story to is so intrigued by the story of Trudy Furney, and so intrigued that this project is happening in a small town in western Kansas. So we actually went through some really extreme precautions in order to be able to record this thing in person safely. The first limitation that we put ourselves as an artistic staff is making sure that we were going to hire artists who were in driving distance, so that no one had to fly in order to be here, since flying is relatively dangerous in terms of contracting COVID. So everyone was able to drive, and then before anyone was in contact with one another, we were actually able to develop a partnership with the Russell Hospital, which we're so incredibly thankful for. They were able to get all 9 people involved in this project a rapid elective COVID test.
Hello everyone. I'm in my car driving to get a rapid COVID test. I have not been exposed. I am not experiencing symptoms. I'm doing this because we have a group of musicians meeting together for the weekend, starting tomorrow. We are a group associated with the Ad Astra Music Festival. We will spend the weekend rehearsing and recording. And this is kind of the only responsible, safe way for a group of singers to make music together right now. Everybody gets tested. Once we have our results, and hope that they are all negative, we form a bubble, and we do not leave our bubble for the weekend until our recording is over. I decided to record my experience for anybody curious. I
So we were all able to drive straight through the Russell Hospital. Everyone got their test, had the results back within a couple hours, and by the time we arrived at Sterling, we knew that we were all negative. And even then, we still, despite the fact that we were quite convinced that we were all negative, we still went through several other COVID precautions, such as wearing masks at all times unless we were singing, performing in a very, very large room with all of the windows open, no air conditioning, which was hot, but well worth it in order to ensure everyone's safety. And you'll also notice that in the video, everyone's quite socially distanced from one another. We were able to maintain 15 feet apart from anyone who was singing at any given time.
We felt like we did this as safely and as responsibly as we possibly could. And we all felt like we were part of something very special, because we just don't know the next time something like this can happen, because it takes an awful lot to make it happen. It takes a lot of resources and ingenuity to be able to take a group of people and make sure that for those 3 days they are safe and well, and that when they leave they are safe and well. So it's very special that we were able to do it. We are all very grateful. The process of workshopping a world premiere is much like you would hear about a theater workshopping a new play that they want to put on Broadway, so they're going to workshop it and try it out during summer stock, upstate New York or something like that. For us, we took what completed portions of the opera Anna and Maria had for us, and decided that we should come together. We should study them with Anna herself, with Maria, really kind of get in and talk about who this woman was, discover new things about the music. Anna is really wonderful at writing for voice, because she constantly wants our feedback. How does that vowel sound? Is that strange in that part of your register? Do we need to move this voicing around to make it more comfortable for you? So for the composer and the librettist as well, it's a learning process, not just for the performers. We're all kind of just discovering how this work is going to feel in our bodies and in our throats. And then, of course, Anna, I'm sure, what a treat to actually be able to hear her music for the first time sung. She doesn't have to listen to a MIDI file. She has actual live humans singing her work for the first time.
This is actually my first time workshopping a new piece. I have experience music directing operas that are composed already, but this has been a unique experience getting to work with Anna and Maria on this thing from the ground up. So it was super exciting. My approach was to get the libretto and to get the score from Anna and Maria, study it as much as I could, ask questions to them, and then make my own markings so that the chorus and the principals would understand my perspective and my interpretation of Anna's and Maria's work. And so we spent only about 3 to 4 hours the first morning of rehearsals actually working this up musically.
It's been really fascinating for me to be a guest in this community of Russell. I've lived and visited so many different places, but Russell is so unique and different from places I've been. It's kind of right smack in the middle of America. So it's just been really fascinating to observe the way of life there and get to know new people, and even just wander the streets to see the type of houses that are built there and the materials that are used. Like, for example, the limestone. That's really unique to that geography. Or even the kinds of trees that grow on the street. The heat in the summer is it's just incredible. It's like walking out into an oven. And so there are all these sensations that these physical sensations I have of being in Russell. Even just viewing the Seventh Angel statue in the middle of the afternoon with this blazing sun and this particular smell in the air of just this hot smell. I don't know, it's like I feel like it's all a part of the impressions that I've been forming, or even just the food that we were fed at different community events. It's a very particular, and the way the houses are decorated inside has a particular aesthetic. And yeah, it's hard to explain how all of this affects the music, but I know that I'm thinking about it when I'm working on this, and it's entering my psyche in some way, and I'm still figuring out a way to express all of this, but I'm thinking about it all.
When we began interviewing the people of the wrestle community, we thought that at first that our mission was to kind of zero in on one truth of Trudy's life, and kind of zero in on the accurate version of who Trudy was. But through the interviews, we realized that she was kind of a slightly different version of Trudy to different people. So she was a little bit different with, her students, for example. She was a little bit different with her colleagues at the school, so her fellow teachers. And so she was a bit more, happy-go-lucky, had her big laugh. Everyone always talked about her big laugh. And, no matter what, carry on kind of attitude with them. And a different version of Trudy with her spiritual study group, where she was a little bit darker, more brooding. She was always reevaluating her beliefs, and she did have a lot of tragedy in her life. So through that process of interviewing people, we realized that to create an opera that purports to show like the one definitive version of Trudy and her life just would not be doing justice to how deep a person she was and how complex she was and how ever changing. Because again, as I said, she really was always searching for answers and reevaluating her own beliefs.
I absolutely see a lot of Trudy in myself. There's the aspects of her career, the fact that she was an artist, a creative soul. My mother is an artist, and she was an art teacher. She taught high school art in a small town in Kansas. So I feel connected to Trudy that way as well. And being from Kansas and knowing people who knew her, and knowing the power of a teacher in your life, especially one in the creative arts. I think a lot of people, when you ask them who was your favorite teacher, they're gonna point out music, art, drama. They all do, because so often a soul and a mind like that is incredibly compassionate and open and accepting of who any person is.
Working with my sister has been a real privilege. We are very close as sisters, and we are candid with one another when we look at each other's work. My sister has always been my first reader for my fiction work, and I think we have similar visions to what we want with our projects. So she'll tell me, am I meeting my vision or not? She's always one of the first people to tell me that. And yeah, we've always been a big supporter of each other's art. So actually collaborating on the same project together, that's such a privilege. We've been wanting to do it for years. So this is a great opportunity for us.
This is probably really generalizing, but I think some of our big differences as artists between me and Maria are that I tend to have a very emotional relationship to my art making, and I tend to experience emotions in kind of like more exaggerated ways, and I think that comes out in my music. My music tends to be quite raw in that way, whereas Maria has a more subdued and under the surface way of dealing with emotion. So in her writing tends to use kind of simpler structures, simpler sentences, and on the surface it feels sometimes more emotionless, but then the weight of everything hits you in this really surprising way. So the emotion's not on the character's sleeve, but it's very strong under the surface.
Well, I think I kind of have a Trudy in my life in a way. So, my sister I see as a little bit of my own little Trudy, because my sister is always the one who inspired me to be an artist. So no one in our family is a working artist. I think they have artistic tendencies. So, my dad sings really well. He plays the guitar. My grandmother, she drew really well. But because, we grew up in the Soviet Union, it was difficult to be an artist. People were pushed to, into these more practical jobs. So we come from a family of chemists and engineers. But then when my sister, after we moved to Canada, my sister, who's 5 years older than me, when she decided to pursue music composition, that was such a new thing for all of us, and to see her work so hard and apply for grants and get these commissions little by little, and actually be able to become a working artist. She was really my role model, and I've always liked to write. I've always kept a journal, and before the days of Skype, my sister and I would have these really lengthy email correspondences, when she was away. And I really loved to write, and she was the one who urged me to do it, and she was the one who gave me the courage to do it. So I see, that's my personal Trudy is my sister.
So one important thing that I'm exploring musically is a difference between Trudy's public persona and her inner persona. And that is something that emerged very strongly from the interviews we did with people. It seems that Trudy had a very, very strong public persona where she was a very positive, kind of joyful character. Everyone talked about her laugh, that it was a very, very memorable laugh. Basically everyone mentioned it. And she was a very energetic woman who did so much for the community. So there's this public side of her. But then in a few of the interviews emerged this quite a different private person who seemed to be struggling quite a bit with certain questions about life and existence and death. She suffered some serious tragedies in her life. Her husband died of cancer. Her son died in very strange circumstances. So it sounds like she was really grappling with some very big questions inside herself that maybe she only revealed that side of her to certain people. So for me, it's been really important to kind of create these separate musical voices for Trudy's public persona and her private one.
The process of writing this libretto, just to give you a little bit of an overview on that, Anna and I, we had 13 hours of interviews with Russellites that we went through as the research, and we also went through the archives at the library in Russell, the newspaper archives of that time period, and it was really interesting to see the newspaper clippings of Trudy and the building of the Angel kind of juxtaposed with what was going on in the broader world at the time. So the Soviet Union was falling, for example. So that was part of our research. And at the end, when we went home, I had 13 hours of interview material. I had that transcribed to, this huge stack of paper that I then condensed into what I saw as the main elements of this opera into index cards.
And the moment I read the libretto, even in its, the short part of it that I got, I knew instantly that it was good, that it made me very excited, because the libretto lets you see the piece. It kind of jumpstarted my imagination instantly as to the staging possibilities that would go with this piece. And that is a sign of a good libretto, when it can, as a director, you can instantly see it played out physically with characters in whatever space that you're going to do it. And that's what it did. And I think it instantly kind of propelled you into the emotion of this story and how powerful it was going to be, can be and will be. And I did not want it to end. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to see what happened. And it just got me very excited about the potential for visually how this thing was going to be expressed.
The music has, I think, echoes of a lot of different composers in it. We've got minimalism throughout. We have almost Renaissance polyphony showcased in certain sections. But I think it's really apparent that Anna is all about creating a soundscape that's reflective of the area of Western Kansas, and that's reflective of the difficulty in describing a story like Trudy Furney's. So, for instance, many of the things that you're going to hear are going to be a bit ethereal and sound very much like you're just sort of flowing in the plains of Western Kansas.
And then the music by Anna is just really gorgeous. Yes, it's a contemporary opera, but the music is lush and it's earthy, and it's easy on the ears. You don't hear anything that your brain and your ears go, stop, I can't, it's contemporary music. I mean, it's gorgeous and it's fun to sing. And there's one piece during the workshop that we sing, and it's kind of, it's a choral piece, and I swear to you, she composed the wheat, swaying in the wind on the Kansas prairie. It's just very earthy, and I think everybody's just in for a treat. It's gorgeous.
I hope people take away from this opera the great gift of what art can be in a community, and Trudy's gift of this angel, building this angel, and we still have it in the park. It's still there, and at the time when the angel was built, the community was going through a rough time, with the oil prices going down, and so the economy was very uncertain. And I would say, unfortunately, the timing of this opera, we see kind of a repeat of that history. So right now we're also in a precarious economic time, and I know Russell is as well. And what I hope is that, this gift that Trudy made to the town, this angel, we can revisit the angel again and recognize, again, the gift of art as hope to community, because we will, just like we weathered the last economic downturn, we're going to weather another one. We can do it.
Mrs. Furney's husband and son, only 27, have died. No matter what, she carries on. Mrs. Furney herself is dying. No one knows but she. Mrs. Furney carries on. She has no choice when there are bigger matters. We watch as hearts that roll away, that roll and roll and roll and roll as we roll and roll and roll and oil and farm jobs dry up. The whole pride of the town, whose has presidential bid a second time. Schools defunded, stores shuttered. We watch as hearts that roll away, that roll and roll and roll and roll as we roll and roll and
From the steel of the oil fields, the steel of the wheat fields, the seventh angel will make a sound wash away ugliness, herald the good. Our town will prosper again.
Our town will prosper again. Our town will
I think a lot about what opera is and what it has been in the past and what it's becoming now and what it could be. I feel like there's so much about this genre that I love a lot. Well, obviously I wouldn't be trying to write an opera if I didn't love it, but I also find there are a lot of problems in this genre and certain musical and dramatic conventions from the past that don't work so well in the modern times. So this idea of the suspension of disbelief when we're asking people to, kind of to set aside the fact that what's happening in front of them is really artificial and to believe that it could be real. I think it works really differently now than it did before.
Anna and I are still working on the libretto, so it's not finished yet. It's still a work in progress. But what we do know is that we're not here to judge anyone or their beliefs, and we're certainly not here to sensationalize any part of Trudy's story. The tabloids did that, and that is unfortunate. And we're really here to be sensitive to this very sensitive topic, what happened at the end of Trudy's life. And I think it might even be a cathartic time for people to have this topic addressed. One of the interviews we conducted was a round table with a bunch of different people from Trudy's life, and we got the sense that this was not really a topic that people talked about a lot to each other, maybe privately in their homes, but so this felt like a kind of a cathartic moment for them because they found out things that they hadn't known, and they had maybe made certain assumptions that other people then, tried to correct them. So maybe this opera will kind of offer an opportunity for people to discuss this subject a little bit more openly.
So a big part of creating this project is questioning what we want to do with the genre of opera, and what we want to keep from it and what we want to change. So I guess this idea that Maria had of kind of creating a meta opera where there's an opera that's being created on stage, where the opera is conscious of being an opera as it's being presented to you. That's something that we decided to do partly to honor the fact that we're constructing a story out of people's memories. We want to preserve that feeling that we're not writing a story from scratch and we're not pretending to be able to tell the one true version of the story. So we want to really emphasize that we are creating something out of these bits and pieces.
Just the way people spoke about her, she seemed like a larger-than-life person, and really a perfect opera character, I think. She seemed very charismatic. She made so many connections with people. So I hope if we can portray that warmth and intelligence of this person, we'd be doing our jobs.
The story of Trudy and of Russell is something that's really universally applicable, particularly in this moment in this country.
That really appeals to me about what I've heard about Trudy, is this idea of pretty sharp divide between the face she put on for her public daily life and the sort of things she seemed to be grappling with in private. So I think that contrast is especially important for me to explore as I keep working on this project.
I think Trudy really represents that kind of search and that human need to find something above herself, something above humanity in a way, that kind of transcends kind of understanding. But by knowing that it's there, it brings a lot of purpose to life.
You kind of discover somebody who has this big, huge brain, who questions everything and is constantly seeking for a better answer. And I think that's kind of a common thread in somebody who kind of is on the threshold of genius. And knowing all of that about Trudy, you can truly empathize and understand why towards the end of her life, she was out looking for other answers. And I just think she's an incredibly fascinating person to learn about. But more than anything, I just get this really feeling of warmth and light around her.